Welcome again. Welcome once again to almost twice in the same 7-day period. It's the Loose Screwsiest podcast. The episode is 219 for February 5th, 2024 or 33010. And I'm Commander Jan Trax, back again, twice in a row. And nobody cheered. So,
yay!
I am joined.
Oh man,
I'm still trying to get the game to boot up.
I am joined tonight by Commander Audaxius.
Hola.
And Lark Shadow.
I'm upside down.
And Mr. Indigo.
Hello, friends.
And NL Hate.
Upside down is relative.
Relative.
Only in Alabama.
We're all relatives in this server.
It's true.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, then I really need to delete some DMs.
I never signed up for this.
Somebody didn't read the terms and conditions.
So, we have absolutely nothing has happened since the last time we recorded an episode because we had this delayed thing. We recorded just this past Thursday, and here it is Monday again. So there was this thing that was being tossed around that for a special idea of a theme show that we were going to do. And so now we're going to go ahead and pull that out of our back pocket. And so I think there's no news, there's no in-game news, except that the CG finished early, which doesn't really surprise me.
The CG finished so fast. Holy crap.
Yeah, finished over the weekend, which is which is normal, frankly, for back when CGs were heavily populated. Right. So that's all good. Actually, should I do a check-in with it? I was about to roll right into squad update. I should do a check-in with everybody, shouldn't I?
Oh yeah, we did
last time. Let's do it a little bit, right? Yeah.
We can do what we do.
Let's do what we do. Yeah. Space chats with buddies time, which sound effect. Space chats with buddies. Okay.
Space chats with buds.
Who has something very interesting to tell me?
I do.
Okay.
This is Commander Indigo. I haven't checked in a while. The last time I was here, we skipped right past it because there were 11 of us and we all had stuff to talk about. First of all, I wanted to give a shout out to my friend Brewer Kiwi, who checked in with me a couple weeks ago to ask how the job hunt was going. And the answer is so weird, I have not yet given him a response. I've started a couple of times and it's just too strange. It turns out I am an evangelist and a revolutionary. And I didn't see it coming, but there's this thing called the data-centric revolution that's going to change the way we do stuff with computers and information and data and all this stuff. And I could talk about it for hours, which is remarkable because I didn't know anything about it like 6 months ago.
Wow.
But it ties into all the state-of-the-art stuff, large language models and knowledge graphs and just all kinds of crazy, like Asimov level shit. You know, it's reinventing the way deciding what the future is going to look like about information and data and how we see it and how we interact with it. And it turns out it's a whole thing, and it's now apparently my thing. And I haven't quite gotten paid for it yet. I'm right on the verge of a couple of consulting gigs writing about it for a couple of different companies.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's been freaking weird. I've been taking advantage essentially of the unemployment insurance that I've paid for 20 years and taking advantage of the love and support of my family members and my darling wife, who puts up with me being an absolute cliche absent-minded professor. It's remarkable the amount of time I could spend right now just staring at the wall and thinking about how to say stuff or how to write stuff. And it's a very, very strange space to be in. Just
to be
being
fair,
completely like obsessed with my work stuff. It's really weird.
To be fair, I think most men that are unemployed would fill that niche of what the crap am I even whatting?
Well, I'm just glad it took the direction it did, because when he said evangelist and revolutionary, I was like, oh no, is he planning another January 6th insurrection?
Whoa. That could have gone a lot of ways.
Yeah, but no, so I'm doing well, but it's very surreal territory, and I'm learning a lot and having a lot of mind-melting conversations with people. So
Very cool.
And to
That's my
put it
story.
in layman's terms, because that's what I do for a living, many moons ago, we tricked rocks into thinking for us. Now he's helping them to think gooder.
Yeah, I'm selling us out. I'm telling them where all the actual knowledge is. So,
Well,
I mean, whatever. Might as well ride the wave, right?
Yep.
Yeah. That's
And
right.
in game, I've been looking for brain trees. That's my thing right now. I'm still working on this extensive brain tree survey out where in that Rego system where they found the battleground with the Guardian sites, and
Nice.
just on the off chance that there's more than one thing out there to find.
Mhm.
And there are a crap ton of brain trees. It's insane. I have found dozens of systems that weren't on the list with brain trees, all in this kind of tight little cluster. So I hope there's
Oh, wow.
something a little bit more than just the one spot that they pointed us to. But it's kind of fun doing a little
Yeah.
low-key exploration with my alt account while Boobtron is hanging out waiting for the next Thargoid night or local war.
Thargoid Sunday.
Yeah.
War Y Day.
I appreciate you running the tool and getting those documented appropriately. That can be awfully boring work.
It really can. I've watched people do it on streams before.
It's not my cup of tea.
Nope.
I posted extended surveys out there. I
Oh,
feel
dang.
you.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. All right. What I'm gonna call now on Audaxius.
I have a little anecdote of IRL stuff which just tickles me to bits. So this weekend was, if none of you have ever been to one or heard of it, the Arizona Renaissance Festival. So
Ooh, sure.
check your historical expectations at the door. This place has nothing to do with any legitimate history. It's Fantasyland. It's just Fantasyland.
yeah.
There's pirates and Doctor Who. Like nothing matters. And I also
Everything's
noticed
on the table.
not everything's on the table. And I thought, just what an incredible example of social context and how you can enter a space where totally different rules are in place and you check all of your normal like checks and balances at the door, because it is the only place on the planet where you will order food from a visibly methed out carny who's dressed like Aladdin for some reason, and you will order food and you're like, yes, Prince Ali, I am going to ingest this steak on a steak. This meat on a stick, I'm going to buy it from you and I'm going to accept it and I'm going to eat it, and I have zero questions.
I am filled with questions.
Such a
As am I.
bizarre spectacle. But I loved it, and honest to God, it was a ton of fun. But in game, I have another new thing I've done that I have not done since Odyssey came out. I'm fighting our wars for the BGS, but with the goal of harvesting materials to engineer the future ships that they're releasing. I have
That's
not.
clever.
I have
That's a
not
good idea.
I have not gathered mats since Odyssey came out. But look at
EGS,
that.
good place to get them.
They teased us with the JPEG, and all of a sudden I'm in game again. They got me, boys. I'm a total shill.
Wow.
Yeah, but that's the news on my end.
Sweet.
Yep.
Who's else? Lark Shadow?
Sure. To be fair to Audaxius's methed out carny that dressed like Aladdin, that was probably just the clothes he found. He probably didn't mean to dress up.
Coincidence. It was actually just me looking in a mirror.
Oh, flip. In Elite, I really haven't done much until like today is the first time I've logged on in what seems like forever, just because the weekend was so long. I meant to play so much, and then just real life biatch slapped me across the face instead. So Saturday morning, me and my wife are sitting there. It's like getting on late morning, like 10:30, somewhere around there. And like we're still in our jammies and stuff. We wake up late on Saturdays. That's one of our days that we just allow ourselves to sleep till whenever. And she gets a call from one of her clients. This particular client is a nice old lady. I've met her. She's 100 years old, literally. She used to be a Rosie the Riveter. Her name's Dottie.
Sure. They all, yes. That's one of the names they were allowed to have. Yeah.
Yeah, just one of the 15 names everyone was naming back then.
Yep.
Well, Dottie, who, bless her aged heart, did not hear the fact that something had busted and was spraying water all over her house until she woke up and basically her whole house was flooded.
Yikes.
So me and my wife rush over there. Her neighbor had come over and gotten the water turned off in the meantime. Turns out that she still had the original hoses for her washer and dryer from whenever those were installed when she moved into that place in the 90s, I think it was said. And one of them burst.
Yep.
And the water pressure was good enough that it literally carved a hole into her drywall and was shooting water into the space between the walls for probably 6 to 8 hours.
Okay.
Here's your problem.
Yeah, very much was a there's your problem thing. So we were only there a couple hours because that's how long it took for Jen to get her situated again. Because when she got out of bed and discovered her carpet was in fact a puddle instead, first thing she did was call my wife. And so Jen got her all situated with breakfast and got her hearing aids, all the stuff she normally does when she's actually there working. And then got a hold of her brother, who is literally her only family that's left. And he lives in California. And he got the ball rolling on the insurance to get mold mitigation in and everything. It's turned into a whole thing. But that was unexpectedly a lot of Saturday. And then that ball of crap just kept careening into this week. And I'm just still trying to get my head on straight.
Yeah, man. Wow.
I hate getting thrown off routine, but she'll be okay.
Good. All right. What's going on with NL Hate?
It's been 3 days. 4 days. No, I pulled an all-nighter Friday night and went to work with no sleep.
Oof.
Because I just couldn't find sleep. And because I work for the service industry, I have an early out sheet I can sign up. It's next to my time clock every day. And I was like, oh yeah, man, it's Saturday. No one is going to get to leave for 3 hours and then they're going to send 7 people home. I mean to be one of those 7 people. So I only worked for 4 hours on Saturday. I went home and I took a nap.
Oh, good.
Golly.
Right.
A midday nap is one of the most wonderful and awful things. It's I got a midday nap in and I feel so rested. And I had so much trouble finding sleep that night.
Oh,
again. So
I hate napping. I'm not the type of person who can nap.
It's robbing Peter to pay Paul.
I had mitigated the Friday night, Saturday morning problem into a Saturday night, Sunday morning problem.
Oh, no.
Sure.
You made that a future problem. Yep.
I was a nap hacker in college and it never really wore off. So I kind of have a button for that now.
I'm still rolling forward on this sleep deficit. But today's a 1-day weekend. But I only have to work one more day for the rest of this week.
Nice.
And man, service industry jobs have some perks. I can just request any old day off I want, and I'm probably gonna get it. But I don't know what my work schedule is gonna be like for March.
Yeah,
is a little bummer, but also kind of nice because I can get nearly any day I want off. Well, not being self-employed and having to deal with self-employed problems, as I recognize some of the people here would have.
Right.
Not going to point any fingers, but who's next?
Mom, how are you?
Oh, is it me again? I thought we had a new mom. Oh well.
Nope.
I haven't really been in game at all. I get it. There's stuff, but I'm gonna be here when stuff pulls me back. But I didn't feel like participating in the CG and stuff like that. Had other busyness crap to take care of, and had kind of a day of things going wrong yesterday, which is nothing particularly to speak of. But it was like, dropping food when I'm cooking and clogging a sink and just bullshit. You know what I mean? So
I hate that crap.
Today was better. Just a normal had a a day where a bunch of shit didn't go wrong. And now we're gonna do a podcast. So I mean, no big stories on my end.
Mhm.
That's it. That's the size of it. So that's it. So I mean, let's go ahead and catch up with what's going on in Screw Space now with a little squad briefing, and then we'll tuck into our main topic. Sound good? Everybody's good? Yes.
Yep.
Excellent. Wonderful.
Incoming priority message. Squadron briefing.
We got a couple of pieces moving. There's an election in Calarum. Ignore it. Don't go there. Don't fly there. Don't end up on the traffic report. Please, don't go to Calarum. It's a raging dumpster fire.
Can I send them a postcard?
If you can do it without going to that star.
Else.
All right, I'll send it somewhere else.
We are expanding from Snoqui Xian to Copian Xing, like we were talking about on the last episode. Qama is still Qama. It's that
Every time.
forward deficit of sleep. Qama is still overheating. Silver's super hot, and we're trying to reduce us. So don't take your silver there. There's other places silver sells. We got several other systems that we're working on. All of them are documented in the Loose Screws standing orders channel on the Discord. And mining morning Mondays.
Morning Mondays, where you mourn those sweet minerals.
Thargsdays Thursdays. Courtesy Della Audaxius.
God in heaven.
And
tomorrow we'll have Pew Pew Pews days. On Wednesday we'll have Why Do We Keep Naming Things These Wednesdays? And then Friday, as I said before, is Friday Frogs Day. And nobody's allowed to play on Saturday.
That one
sounds like one of 8
4-year-old
said that.
And I'm gonna say this now, and we're probably gonna say it at the end of the show. We ought to say it at the beginning of the show. If you're not in Discord, join us in the Discord. This stuff never stops. It just gets even more whimsical.
It's true. This really is just kind of opening the window for an hour or so.
It's the tip of the whimsy iceberg.
The subtitle of the Discord is
letting the smell waft out the window for an hour.
that abandon all hope ye who enter here. That's the subtitle of the Discord.
All right. Thanks for the squad update. So, like we said, talking about a theme episode, and it just so happens that it was Audaxius's idea all those weeks ago. So I'm going to let him intro this. Take it away.
So we've all sat down to play Elite. We've all opened the game for the first time, and we've all realized,
have done that.
Oh my God, I don't know what anything does, and what button do I press? And the good thing is, the good consolation is that feeling really never goes away. Now, I've been playing this game for 6 years. So the theme today is key bindings. We all love them. We all forget them. We all lose them. So with key bindings, I figure the best way is just to go, we're going to go right down the list for your edification.
I'll put it on the stream too, because I'll just jump into there and put them on screen right now.
Are we going to start with general controls or ship
options.
controls?
We're going to start with ship controls, if you guys are
Ship
ready.
controls, got it. Ship controls, yep.
Yeah.
And keep in mind, this is on Gamepad for you Gamepad bros out there.
Oh, okay. So
yeah.
so once you get through the document, one of us on a different control
we're gonna
type can
switch to
start
HOTAS.
theirs.
You guys
Okay,
are
got
ready?
it.
Cool.
Right.
So
Okay.
increase throttle, right shoulder. Decrease throttle, that's left shoulder. That's a good one.
I'm giving it.
So is this under
Interesting.
the
This
flight
is under
throttle section?
flight throttle. Yep.
Got it. Okay. Yep.
Like you like throttle up and throttle down.
Then I throttle down. Set speed
Oh,
to
it's on the
0%.
shoulders.
Check this
Yeah,
out.
see, I
Left-
did this just the 4 quarters when I
check
was.
this out. Set speed to 0%. That's left shoulder, right stick. Wow.
What do you mean? Like at
phenomenal.
the same time?
Like
the
thumb
same
press left,
time.
the right
Set
stick.
speed to 25%. Check this one out. Left shoulder down button.
Yeah.
50%. Right shoulder, left shoulder.
why don't you just
what?
use the
How do
same
you
modifier
remember
key
that?
and then the up, down, left,
75%
right for
right shoulder down button.
Okay, so that's still the right shoulder and the keypad.
Set speed to
right?
100%. Right shoulder, right stick.
What?
And now for the listening audience.
Wait, you
if
use different
thought-
keys for the 0 and 100 than you do for the.
If you thought you were going to have to endure the horror of me reading the entire list start to finish, I will cut it off here. And transition to the actual
Okay.
discussion about key bindings.
So-
No, sorry. Here we go. I played
okay.
that out as long as I could go.
Yeah.
No, here's the actual discussion about key binding. So I will tackle the gamepad side and we can transition. But for any of you guys that are like new to the game or contemplating how to tackle all this fire hose of key bindings and information and everything, it is here's the philosophy. You really want to set it right from the first time, and you're gonna get over this learning cliff because muscle memory is really gonna kick in. And when you're playing Elite on gamepad, I figure the best way to go about it is to set a button to a general idea, and then you kind of riff on that idea. So for me, increases in throttle all come from the right shoulder, and then buttons that are paired with that. Decreases are all the left shoulder buttons that are paired with that. And then going down the list, like with scanning, every variation of scanning is the A key with some variation.
Okay, hold on. No, this is we're getting into the stuff now.
Yeah.
So what I was thinking is we should lay out like what different what actual controllers we're using.
Yes.
And then tuck into like, okay, where are, how do you handle your axes? How do you handle this and that?
Yeah.
And, but like philosophically, like that's exactly what I also do is basically like you find a part of the controller or, in your case, it's basically like one control was a modifier and then you have an array of controls around that. Like the same thing goes on with sticks. So, so you play with an Xbox controller.
Yes.
I think do you play with a Keypad?
Yes. Yeah.
Xbox? Okay.
Yeah.
Because you guys came from Xbox.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay,
Also just
right
the
on.
convenience of not like small setup, you can tuck it away. Yeah.
Yeah. Lark and Indigo are keyboard mouse, right?
Yep.
That is correct.
Yeah, I
though I
learned
have
on-
tried many other options.
I learned on PlayStation, moved over to PC and keyboard. And
Got
mouse.
it. So when we were gonna do this, normally it's like the roster's dominated, or at least in the past, is dominated by HOTAS or dual stick people. And then the day we actually do this, I'm the only one not using gamepad or KVM. Okay, so I have dual stick, but I have used throttle and stick before. For actually, at least as long as I've had dual stick.
And I am keyboard and mouse, though I have tried dual stick and throttle, and my entire flight sim setup in Elite just for kicks and giggles, and I hated all of them.
That's so interesting.
It's a lot of buttons.
Yeah, I'll explain that one later because it did involve my rudder
yeah.
pedals too. It was trippy.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I had for mine, I've had a few. I actually started with a joystick and a keyboard, and then I got a throttle piece for it, and then I went through a few where I was like, it would break, and then I bought an X56, and then that eventually started breaking, and then I got these VKBs and went dual stick and did away with the throttle completely. And around the same time, Actually, when I still had the X56, I had switched to flight assist off. So that's the next question is, you do these controls. Is there anybody except me that plays with flight assist off much / all the time?
I do mostly. Yeah.
I'm up to about
okay.
half the time, but I go in and out of it basically for quick turns depending on the ship I'm in.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah. With Gamepad. Yeah. Oh,
Sorry.
Pete?
Oh, I'm almost entirely flight assist on.
Yeah.
So maybe toggling sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Using like a handbrake.
That's a big trade-off with Gamepad because it's the convenience of it's small, it's inexpensive, you can tuck it away. The problem with Gamepad is what I've found is in flight assist off, you do have to sacrifice horizontal thrust in favor of yaw.
Yep.
You can do a roll into yaw to get it all on one stick, and then you could have horizontal thrusters in the other one. I hated
So kind of
that
make it
level.
fly sort of like Star Wars.
I hated that level of specificity. So I've kind of, what I've done is just integrate that into my flying, knowing that I don't have horizontal thrust. I've just gotten used to using the vertical thrust and pitching over that'll accomplish the job.
Wow.
But it is doable. What really helped, and I kind of rolled my eyes at it, but I bought the extenders for the gamepad. So the sticks are actually about an inch higher, and it adds a level of specificity that
helps a lot for sure.
Yeah, it really helps a lot. If you're on Gamepad and you don't have them yet, super cheap on Amazon. They're a little rubber thing that locks on. When you're in flight assist off, the only thing I used in combat for flight assist on is basically targeting help. Like if I'm using rail guns or I need to be like really specific and far away, you're not gonna get the high accuracy that I tried once when another friend set up with joystick. But I mean, I've 6 years into the game, I'm really comfortable in combat, and flight assist off doesn't present any challenges as long as you're used to that one concession that one of your thrust vectors is just yaw.
Yeah, that's why
It's doable. Yeah,
I played for a couple of years, year and a half, I guess, on PS4 controller, and was mostly flight assist on at that point. I really didn't know much about the game or know that all you cool folks were already playing it. And when I switched over to PC so I could actually hang out and kill Thargoids in person with you guys, I played on controller for a good while until I bit the bullet and decided to go flight assist off, and I just didn't have enough buttons. But I couldn't have dealt without horizontal thrust, but you do weird things. I use the thumb press on the left and right joysticks for up and down, which was not great. Turning and going up or down with your thumbs like that is a pain. Or using the separate, I don't remember exactly why I did it, but there's something about setting it up for the alternate landing controls that you can toggle between. Yeah. And there was one particular kind of mapping that I could do with that turned on. So I basically had to put it in alternate mode every time I got in the ship, just so I could make the controller work. But in the end, it was just too much thumb action and not quite enough fingers to do actual flight assist off. I can't imagine flying without horizontal.
There is a really weird move I have to pull sometimes where my left index feature reaches over to the right stick to hold it in place so my thumb can get up to the buttons. But that's as much like carpal tunnel inducing moves as I have to do. I went the brute force method with flight assist off and was like, I just need to approach this like it's its own game loop. And that was a line from Sanderling, the guy, you guys might have heard of him. He does really fantastic hooning, and he mostly plays in Legacy, I think.
Totally.
But he like did I don't know how I came into it, but he did a streaming evening once, and then I was like in the audience, and he said, you have to approach this like it's its own game loop. So that's really
exactly what I did.
That really got me to just dive in head first. And as long as you understand the limitations of your setup, like with getting into when they added Odyssey, it's a piece of cake. The on-foot stuff is great on Gamepad.
Sure.
I was already used to the flight, so as long as you understand
SRVs are easy.
SRVs
makes
are real
sense on
easy.
Gamepad,
Yeah, so if anyone's thinking about it, I'd encourage it. As long as you understand its limitations, you can access everything in the game with it.
So explain, because I don't play this game, I don't really know even where the axes necessarily line up. I would imagine that it would be something similar where one stick is attitude, right? One stick is aiming and the other stick is translation. The other stick is moving, but you don't have twist on either one, which means you're left with like shoulders or triggers, I guess, to do that, which means you only have one set of twisty axis compared to where I have two.
Yeah, so my attitude, pitch and roll is left stick, and then yaw and vertical thrusters is right stick, and that's the concession you have to make. You could do
so it's combined.
You could do roll into yaw on the left stick and then have all your thrusters on the right, but I found that especially in the heat of the moment, that level of specificity with a small Xbox stick is it gets mucky, so I wasn't going to rely on that.
So really what it's coming down to is because the flight assist is off, you don't usually have a throttle axis when you're using flight assist off. I mean, you can still set a throttle. It's just you don't need to because you can have just like a momentary bursts of thrust instead. Right. So
yeah, that all comes from the shoulder buttons, which is one thing I do like. Yeah.
Yeah, see, I did a little sort of, I guess, a variation of the No Man's Sky default where the shoulder buttons were roll. And then left was
I feel like that's what I would want to do too.
I needed it all in my thumbs. That's purely taste, but I had never done any kind of flight simulator or flight game before this came along, and all of a sudden I bought like the crunchiest one.
Yeah, it is a really interesting cognitive challenge, and and Jan referred to it earlier, the sort of subject association that you get with buttons. Like on my old, the 4 buttons on the right side were each shift buttons for the control pad on the left. So each, different kind of categories. But by the time I was done with game controller, I had pairs of those buttons as well for shift. So I would do X or X circle would do a different category of things, and
shift and shift.
I'd have a hard time going back to it right now, but I must have looked like a crazy stenographer flying that thing in combat.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the only way to keep it all digestible. I mean, I'd like the B button was just all ship functions. Like if my ship is doing a thing that's not related to flight, it's all connected to pairs of that. So like that's chaff, shield, soul banks, everything else. It was just too much to remember otherwise.
Okay, let's talk. Hey, do you have anything to add about gamepad as far as like axes are concerned?
It really is a trade-off between yaw and lateral thrusters, and I chose yaw as well.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. Aiming's probably more important.
Oh yeah.
I guess. Yeah. Okay. So then the keyboard and mouse people, what are your axes?
So it was actually an interesting journey for me figuring this out and figuring out what I liked as like eventually becoming a diehard keyboard mouse guy in this game. Because I do come from Flight Sim. I've played Flight Sim since Flight Sim 4.0, way the heck back.
Do you play that with keyboard and mouse?
No, I played that with joysticks and stuff.
What's wrong with you? Okay.
He doesn't know, right? He doesn't have a Dance Revolution pad because he's Lark.
No, but the point is I got used to 3 dimensions, but I got used to 3 dimensions in a way where there's air. I got used to aerodynamics, not just straight up space. So when it came to space, I tried joystick throttle. I tried 2 sticks because I had them. I even tried, just for kicks and giggles, binding my entire throttle quadrant, my flight sim yoke, my freaking rudder pedals, including the brake axes, everything to something. And that gave me vertigo for some reason. Also, you get vertigo if you set up your truck sim equipment and try Elite with that as well, just for the record.
Truck sim. Oh my God.
Yeah, I tried it with a steering wheel just for kicks and giggles. And so I actually ended on keyboard and mouse because while I grew up with flight sims, I also grew up with Star Trek. And it just hitting the buttons in a certain way made the most sense for me. And so, it's kind of set up like a shooter with like WSAD as my yaw and throttle forward and reverse. But then I also have RNS.
So your yaw is left hand and forward and reverse is left hand. So you're mixing again, just like the gamepad thing, you're mixing a translational axis with an attitude axis.
Oh, it gets better. All thrusters are on my left hand. So what I ended up
that's the way I would do it. But you just said that maybe I no, you said yaw. Do you mean lateral? You mean left right thrust?
no, that's there too. So yaw is on AD, but just moving sideways left or right is on QE. And then I put my thrust up and thrust down on R and F. Because that way, if I'm in the heat of the moment, I found that I'm still dexterous enough, I can just move my hand over, start doing the WSAD with my ring finger as the center, and then use my other finger for the R and F as needed to get my ship in the right spot. And I found that works really well for me. But again, I'm a really weird person. So, I mean, your own mileage may vary.
And then, on your mouse, is the rest of your aiming axes are on the mouse? So you got...
mouse is literally just directional control. It does roll, but the end.
Roll on your mouse. That's right. You have yaw on your keys.
Yeah, it does roll and pitch up and pitch
Which
down.
Is that inscrutable?
Roll and pitch.
That's the default.
Roll
that's
and pitch is on mouse.
That leaves you spinning a bit the first time you try and play on keyboard and mouse. I don't think there are a lot of spaceflight sim games that do roll on the mouse by default.
So I've seen people who, and this is immediate, like when I tried it one day, I tried to turn on keyboard and mouse. I immediately changed the left right on the mouse to be yaw.
Yeah, for sure.
So that it was like a shooter. I was aiming in a sort of horizontal and vertical plane with the mouse, and then you had so I've seen people do a modifier key that turns it into roll, or actually I have two thumb buttons on my mouse and I put roll on those.
Oh,
I didn't stick with it to get used to it. But so what do you have, Indigo, for axes?
So I don't have a fancy mouse, but I have a slightly fancy mouse that I make extensive use of. But my default controls are thrusters on WASD and then Q and E for roll. And then forward and back are what would be the page forward and page back thumb buttons on the mouse.
Yeah.
So just on my thumb, I have forward and reverse thrust. And then the thumb knob is super cruise throttle.
Right.
And yeah, I like everything about it except that the roll control is not analog. It's only you spend a fair bit of time tipping slightly to one side or the other, and just kind of that's kind of the concession that you make. It's hard to equalize roll inputs because the keyboard timing is so sensitive. But on the upside, the keyboard timing is really sensitive, so you can get plenty of control. It's just tricky to get actual even perfect control. So you do a little bit of a drunken master, always rolling slightly to the left or to the right.
Oh, there is actually a trick.
That's my secret. I'm always rolling.
Even more accuracy. I'm not sure if Indigo knows about it or not.
Now is the time for tricks like that. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, I've been using the crap out of it. So fairly recently, at least in elite terms, they added the ability to bind enabling and disabling relative mouse.
I know. Right? Well, I use it all the time.
Yeah.
Oh, as do I. It's bound to one of my alt keys, so I can just turn it on and off.
That's my mouse wheel press. My mouse wheel press cycles between relative mouse and
nice. I like it.
Objective mouse, I guess.
But what I also have bound to my tilde and just within reach of my thruster hand, that sounded better in my head, is...
No, I'm with you. I got it.
Well, just in range of my thruster hand is the tilde, which at least for me, turns flight assist on and off. So with just two quick presses, I can be in completely FA off mode, whip the ship around, put it back in FA mode, so I'm just pointed right at them and blast away.
That doesn't have hold and toggle, does it?
It does have the option. I just have it set to toggle because that works better for me. But you can hold the toggle as well. I don't have that many fingers.
Interesting. Yeah, I use that key for silent running.
Nice.
Which is not quite ideal, but I can still reach my thrusters while I'm holding it down. So, and I use
my silent running's next to my landing gear over on frickin' insert and delete.
We're getting ahead of ourselves. That's not an access.
Yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned the silent running one because I have an equally screwy trick on Xbox controller.
It's all the shift buttons. He's like panic slam the whole controller.
It's 10 keys on the key. It's 10 keys. I have to play it like a piano.
No, he set it up as the Konami code from Street Fighter.
Oh my god.
It's a macro.
Yep.
Okay. Well, I guess so. As the only joystick person on this amazing podcast.
Sorry, it worked out that way.
It's rare. Some people I heard people.
Sorry.
No, I was saying I heard people play this game with joysticks. So what's that?
So I guess I have to represent HOTAS
Everyone.
and HOSAS. So for stick and throttle, obviously the throttle axis is the throttle axis. One of the main reasons, I think dual stick makes a lot more sense for a space game, kind of even if you do intend to use a throttle axis. And I have two VKBs, and the left one is the Omni throttle attachment. So the stick is like offset and tilted over so that your hand's almost in a throttle position. But I don't use any throttle unless I'm in Super Cruise. Because with FA off, I just have everything bound to actual thrust. So there's no. I actually do have a throttle axis because there's one of these little wheels on the stick, but I have to take my hand off the stick to use it. It's really like it's for fine adjustments. And once again, like I said, only in Super Cruise does throttle ever get touched by me because I don't ever need it. I just thrust forward or thrust back to slow down or go backwards or whatever. So the throttle axis is actually the hat that's on my thumb on the left hand. So
really,
just a 4-post throttle, right?
To break. Well, it's actually 5.
Right.
So to break it all down, so the hats on the VKBs are 4 directions and a push. So they have 5 switches. My entire left hand is translational and or throttle. So all the ship movement, and then the entire right hand is only aiming attitude. So the thumb hat is like 100%, 75, 50, 25, and then push to do 0. And that gets you through Super Cruise. And then other than that, it's just, push it forward to go forward, left, right, back to go back. And then the twist is up, down, which is physically oriented like real life because the stick's leaned over, right? And when I had a throttle, it had a little thumb joystick thing built into it. The X56 has this, and before that, there was the T16000 Thrustmaster thing, which had one. It was on the index finger, which actually it seems weird at first, but it's actually really, really good for thruster control. But that works, more or less the same. You can basically treat it if you can have your hand on throttle all the time, you can basically treat it like a throttle axis anyway, so it's fine. And then the right hand is the stick like you're expecting, right? All the aiming axes, and the twist is yaw and so on. That make sense?
Yeah,
I like it.
So it's pretty compartmentalized.
Do you use flight assist on ever, even as like an air brake?
I have used it. There are 2 times when I use it. One is sometimes you're trying to get into Super Cruise.
Oh, I thought you said
don't.
Hold on. I thought you said there are 2 times that I use it, and then you're gonna be like, one was in 2018.
Oh, it was this one day in spring. No, when you're often, speaking of like drunken master, like when you're flying flight assist off all the time, you get very used to accepting whatever your vector is. Like your vector is not where you're aiming, and you accept and decouple those. But that means you're without external frames of reference, you have to look at the dust. Mm-hmm. And sometimes certain lighting, certain resolutions, it's hard to see the dust fly by. In VR, it's much easier. Sometimes on my screen, I lose it. I think it's because my resolution's too high or something like that, and it's too far away from my face. But
there's a reason EDHM lets you specify the details of the dust.
Right.
Oh no, my resolution's too high. My wallet's too small for my 50s.
It's like trying to draw the dust too small, and anyway, there are times when it's hard to see what's wrong with my vector. Why am I not aligned? You know what I mean? Then I'll kick the flight assist on, it'll zero me out, and then I take off. And then the other one is, since we've been doing this attacking Thargoids on the surface sites, when you're in gravity of like approaching half a G or more, you can get into these downward trajectories toward the surface that you absolutely cannot pull out of. Yeah. You have to like flip and
Old
burn,
speedball.
You have to do basically like turn the ship around and like retro rocket. And sometimes you can make that work, but most of the time that just throws you into a big circle instead.
Yeah.
However, for some reason, which is probably just game hand wavium and cheating, if you throw on flight assist, it will zero you out every time in no time at all. Way more, like all of a sudden you'll have way more stopping thrust than your ship actually has.
Yeah, like you're coming in at 850 meters a second, or you can put it in FA on.
Yeah, maybe it's just my wrong perception. I always felt with flight assist off that if I, vector is behind me, I'm facing, and I go full throttle, even going full throttle in exactly the opposite direction, that throwing flight assist on as an air brake was somehow faster. And I don't know if those numbers add
it's true.
up.
Yeah, it is impossible.
That's what
to
we're
recover.
saying.
I think
there's no such thing as an unrecoverable descent with FA on and with FA.
Oh no, there is. I get into plenty of those even with it.
I mean, if you're too close, then you're too close.
Well, yeah, I mean, you can always hit the ground, but
if I have if the flight assist is off and I perfectly vector away from, if I perfectly aim away from my vector and boost, I should get thrust that slows me down, but I'll be going like 600, 800 meters a second downward. I'll push boost and it changes not one single meter per second.
There's a speed you cannot reduce with.
So in order to pull out of that, you have to actually aim somewhat with your vector, but away from the surface to create like a slow arc that'll point you away from the surface. And with that you can boost, which is this, it's the same thing as like tides.
That's even more than you need to do. I think just in almost all cases, just putting FA on as long as you're still like 10 kilometers up or 6 kilometers up or whatever is enough.
This is what I was trying before I decided to just accept the air brake.
Oh yeah,
But anyway, so yes, that's the other time you turn on the flight assist and
Jesus take the wheel.
Basically.
Okay, so the next. So that's Axe's layout. I think that all makes sense. Yeah. The other thing is, and we've sort of talked about this already, but like I'll start the sort of grouping of controls. Mm-hmm. Like for example, so both of these sticks I have 4 hats and then a few extra buttons on these sticks. So I have like the triggers and a couple of extra buttons. These sticks have a pinky trigger. So the one on my right hand, I have fire 1 and fire 2, right? So index finger, pinky finger. And then on my left hand, my trigger is boost and my pinky is the shift button. And that kind of controls everything else. And then I have like 4 hats. Like I said, one of them is on the left hand is the throttle, but on the right hand, basically I have all of my targeting kinds of things are going to show up on my right hand. So I'm going to have...
Oh, so you really don't need to take your hands off the sticks.
Oh, I absolutely don't ever have to take my hands off of them. So,
which is kind of a VR thing too. I mean, not having to look at your controls.
Right.
Yeah, I have a dedicated button for target ahead, and then I have one of the hats will do target, cycle all targets, and then cycle hostiles is left right. And then if I hold the shift button, it starts going into sub targets on those buttons, right?
And then I have
cannons.
Yeah.
I have most of those on my mouse wheel with modifier keys. So scrolling through hostile targets,
so you
all
can
targets,
spin them.
local targets, things like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I have another hat is ship systems. So like one hat is the pips. Sorry, pips. And that's the same one that also navigates menus. So you look at a menu or click over to your menu. One of my hats is changing which menu I'm looking at, which it isn't needed in VR because I can just look at them. But in flat screen, you have to change which menu you're focused on. And then I have, I guess it's that one actually. When I hold the shift, it's all my like wingman targets. So I hold shift and I can target the 3 wingmates and then push down to target their target, things like that. And then over on the left, the same sorts of groupings, things like countermeasures, chaff, stuff like that. And sometimes like the shift button for heat sinks, the shift button version of that is the silent running. And then I have changing fire groups on one, and hold shift does something else, and so on and so on and so on. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so they're all sort of grouped and targeting does one thing and then holding shift turns it into sub-targets. Target, the other thing is like the wingmates, and hold shift changes it to like a different kind of, cycling through different targets and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right.
Same
That's the
philosophy.
sticks.
Yeah. Same philosophy in Gamepad. I just had to get in my brain. I had to make categories. Like B is all the ship functions. A is any kind of targeting or scanning. But the thank God with Xbox and Gamepad, they programmed in the game that you can have these combinations. But the particular of it is that in the settings menu, the first button listed of the two buttons, that one has to be pressed first or at exactly the same time, and it can't happen in the other order, or you won't get the command. So what I weirdly enough, what I had to do is B. Just pressing B does nothing. Because what I found was in combat with enough ship functions and flipping flight assist on and off, I was like fumbling over myself when I transferred from Xbox to computer.
Well, that's not a gamepad. I mean, my shift button, it can't do anything else. It's only combining with other things, right? So if I hit it, it's not like if I hit it by itself, it'll deploy landing gear or something.
I had made the mistake at one point of having B with like a directional button as shoot, what is it? Turn your shields off. There's no
silent.
Heat. It's silent running. And I was like, Jesus, in the middle of combat.
Turn your shields off.
I'm silent running. I'm like, Jesus, I got to do something else. So that's why I found the least convenient key binding on Xbox controller is
to make it hard on purpose.
Literally, it's X and B. So I have to remove my thumb from the stick and kind of maneuver my fingers around to hit X and B at the same time. I cannot do it accidentally. And that was the workaround to not lose my shields in combat.
Nice.
Yeah, why is anything that's super cruise or mapping related, and then on foot's a whole nother gamble. I basically copied the standard on foot color, button scheme, but I wasn't gonna mess with that too much. But yeah, that's the only way to keep it straight. And of course, my favorite key binding is chaff, which is I went in and specified that one's Alt F4. Great. Anytime you reach
over to the keyboard.
Anytime I'm taking damage, boom, pop chaff. All of a sudden, no damage. It's great.
Damage is incoming damage reduced to 0%.
0%.
Hacksaws.
Oh,
that's crazy.
Yeah.
For keyboard and mouse, you have all of the keys. But you guys probably still use. Do you use shift keys still, or?
I actually do not, because
I don't use many either.
Yeah, that's just a holdover from flight sim training for all intents and purposes for me. So like
everything has its own key.
Yeah, exactly. So like for like chaff, for instance, and like popping heat sinks, and even the Thargoid pulse wave guys that you can set to a key now. Those are all on like ZXCV, so they're right there for my thumb to use as needed.
Oh, like the bottom row below you. Yeah. Okay.
How do you guys do pips?
My pips are
arrow
still
keys.
just over on my arrow keys, and I just reach over and do them. That's why I don't change pips much.
Yeah, same here. I mean, the physical gesture of going from mouse to arrow keys and back to mouse is not even really enough to register unless you're in the middle of a maneuver at the time. But one of my favorite mind-blowing KBM hacks for pips came from Bernardo, who has some great videos on learning FA off with keyboard and mouse. But from his PvP days, he has a set. I tried it out once to see if I could make it work, but it was something like the shift key and the control key are each modifiers for the mouse wheel, which increases one category or another of pips. So, but it's weird. It's like it's intended to be like you're flying an FDL and need to change your pips frequently,
real quick,
right?
And so it's like one key he would use to go full engines, a different one he would. Mostly, they only went up. That's what I kind of remember. That it was like you do engines or shields or systems, and you only ever scroll any of them up because they kind of balance the others. So if you need to do everything but systems, then you go up on engines and up on weapons. And then I think there was a down that was essentially just resetting them so that he could just put that
But
part of muscle memory into.
I mean, that
rapidly
matches the
changing
arrow
pips.
keys too. It's just a matter
Oh, yeah,
of
that's a good
like
point.
learning it
It
as
is,
a
yeah.
modifier key. Yeah, you're only ever pushing them up.
Yeah.
Except the down button that resets everything to 2. The other thing that I've seen watching like PvPers, some would say gankers on streams and stuff, is that they'll have like macro keys programmed for specific pip positions, right? So you're going to be Mr. Ninja FDL player killer. You're going to have your 141, or you have these few setups, and so they have like 3 keys that basically create that, and it's like right there on the numpad or something, so it's right next to the mouse. It can be grabbed in an instant, and does a quick little.
So
it sets it to exactly that.
Right.
So I've seen an alternate way of doing the pips for mouse and keyboard for people like me who I have like all my thrusters on 2 rows, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's putting your pips on 1, 2, 3, 4. And 1 is reset, 2 is systems, 3 is engines, 4 is weapons.
Yeah. Okay. So you
That
can
makes
just
sense,
reach
as
them
long
on
as you-
left hand. Yeah.
As long as you have another easy way to switch
So,
between panels.
I mean, actually, that's
haven't tried
interesting.
it,
That brings up something that we should talk about, because the thing that I put almost the most thought into when I was laying out my controls, at least this last time, but probably the other times too, is okay. Here's what I think about: when is it safe to hit that key? And that's going to determine whether I can use it for that. So 1, 2, 3, 4 for pips. I am not going to want to take my hands off the thrusters. I have to be able to adjust my pips without taking my hands off the thrusters. So like on my stick, let's see, if there's something that's on a particular hat, I need to be able to access something.
Really?
I can't be, that means it has to be operated by my thumb. Anything that's on a hat has to be operated by my thumb. So if it's on my left thumb, if it's on one of the hats on my left stick, I have to still have access to the other things I need, right? So for me, I always have access to thrusters because it's the whole hand. So it's ship functions. Like I'm never going to need to do landing gear at the exact same moment that I'm doing chaff or something. You know what I mean? I can just quickly hit them one after the other. That's why pips have to be on my right hand, because I'm thrusting with my left. So I have to be able to adjust pips with my right. And likewise with like boost, right? Boost had to go on the trigger. I can't use my thumb for boost because I want access to boost at any instant, even if I'm doing something with my thumb at the time. So that made it onto a trigger. So that became one of the important buttons, right? So do you guys think about that sort of layout? Because that's what I think.
I thought about that a lot. That's another Achilles heel of the standard Xbox controllers. It's super convenient to have it on the actual directional buttons, but you are taking your thumb off. So I've gotten used to using both thumbs, whatever one is less important at that second for transferring pips. It's not a downside if you get there's an upgraded Xbox controller that has paddles on the back. I've actually thought about getting that one. It gives you 4 more buttons on the back that you have access to. I might shell out for that at some point, because if you had access on the back, that pips was under the fingers on the backside that are kind of dead space on the standard controller. That is the one thing that I would change to the game.
So you know what you would do, and I'm going to come back to you, Lark, in just a second. But if you have 4 extra buttons on the back, one of those or 2 of them should be your shift buttons, and that frees up your thumbs to do everything.
Yeah. I don't know if my brain has the bandwidth to redo that much muscle memory
it again.
Yeah. 6 years. If I literally bought the thing just to assign those 4 buttons to the 4 pips, I might actually do that. But that might be all I have mental space for.
I agree, because that's pips is like the thing that you have to be able to do at the same time as other stuff. And it's also your menu nav buttons.
Yeah. I have never seen a game that relies so exclusively on muscle memory than Elite. Like no
I know, right?
Comes close.
Yeah. All right, Lark, what were you going to say?
So if I can drill into that, well, I need my hand here because I need my hand here because thing.
Well said. I should have just let you talk.
I know, right?
It's the name of the episode.
Oh, shut up. So I don't know. I just don't think about it that way with pips, because the only time I'm ever changing pips, just because of the way I fly with like FA on, and I'm a lot more heavily reliant on like my shields and armor to be able to just face tank so I can do whatever I need to do to finish the fight, right? That's part of the reason I do that. It's because I know I'm going to have to hit those buttons. Let's say I had my pips set on like 1, 2, 3, 4.
But dude,
that's like an inch away, and I can
your
hit
shields are 2.5 times stronger if you have 4 pips in systems. That's why people juggle their pips. It's not because they haven't built their ships with armor like yours is. It's because their armor is way stronger than yours.
It's a bit,
right, and I'm realizing that now.
And there are two properties of the ship that actually
when you put it like
differently.
No, but from my perspective, like with my hand just on WSAD and the thumb on space and pinky on shift just by default, because Counter-Strike got me into games. It's like, well, 1, 2, 3, 4 is right there. That's a really easy move for me because my muscle memory is already there from changing weapons in other games. I don't know if that's just a me thing or not.
Well, it's not like you have a hard time getting back to WASD from 1, 2, 3, 4. So
exactly.
You're not taking your hand off the thrusters. You're really just
and I'm usually
tapping.
only changing pips in a turning situation when neither of us are able to fire at each other anyways.
Yeah, that can happen sometimes. I feel like if I was going to keyboard and mouse, I would probably want a mouse that had 4 buttons on a thumb.
Oh,
and that would end up being the pips, right? Because my mouse has 2 buttons on the thumb. That wouldn't do it. That wouldn't cut it. But that's probably what I would end up wanting if I was really getting. If it was going to be this is my control scheme. That's probably what I would get.
Yeah, and that's fair. I was just trying to understand where you were coming from that, because I had never thought about it that way. Is all.
Nothing. Oh, sorry, Drax. Go ahead.
No, it's like if somebody starts shooting at you, all pips go to systems. And then all pips immediately go to engine. The faster you're moving your pips, people talk about like engineering. I've heard this comment like PvP is just all about who has the more engineered ship. No, sir. No. There's a whole other level to it. And if somebody with a less powerful ship is fighting somebody who's juggling their pips correctly, they can have an advantage. And if both ships are the same, the win is going to go to the player that's juggling their pips, because 2.5 times 250% shield strength. That's just
it does make a difference. I use that one a lot.
Raw resistance across the board.
Case in point about that, back in the HIP 22460 days when you had these anti-Xeno gankers, I smoked a guy in a meta FDL in my AX Chieftain, no shield and plasma chargers, because he was just shit at bit management and turning. He couldn't, didn't matter how many materials he'd poured into his engineering, he couldn't stay on target, and I was dancing circles around him because we were doing so much AX back in the day.
Can I have a quick aside?
Practicing moving all the time, and he probably also thought he was invincible because he probably built his ship for thermal resist.
Pride cometh before the fall, son.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now, nothing, I stress to everyone, nothing's going to teach you the importance of pit management than having a large ship be your main combat ship. I do the majority of combat in the Anaconda, and you shouldn't do that. Yeah, I get it. But that was
an eerie impression of me, guys, wasn't it?
That was
really.
I was going for Chig. Did I not get it?
No, you missed.
There's a satisfaction in large ship combat, which is just getting all those guns to bear on your target, but you don't have a rat's chance in hell if you're not really actively managing your pips. I get it. The principle's the same for all ships, but it really impresses that lesson on you if you're going to do it that way.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So quick aside, because this is funny. Just to break this up for everyone who checked out forever ago but likes listening to us anyways. So the planet, that one of the low CZs in Kupatak or Kupatak? Whatever, that one
How should I know?
Where we're fighting a war. The planet that the low CZ's around is 1.35 Gs. I landed here on my Sidewinder and went to take off again, but didn't really commit to the takeoff, and the gravity immediately set me back down on my things and landed me again.
Not today, son.
I was just like, okay.
Oh, this is a big boy. Look at this planet. Yeah. You can see just on the system map that she's a biggin.
Carry on though.
Yep. The other keybinding question is, when you started playing the game, how long did it take you to abandon the Jettison all cargo keybind?
Oh, that hasn't been bound for 2 years.
And was it within a minute or within an hour?
Within an hour, I lost everything.
And then anyone, if anyone out there uses that or has ever had a use for it, please post it in the Discord. We would love to hear if that ever served a purpose in the game's history.
All right, that's going to be the show title then. Jettison all cargo.
Yep.
I think this has gone pretty well, because we're not just like reading all the keybinds, but talking about the philosophy of it and stuff like this, which I think matters. We should have done the audiobook version, the reference, so you can.
Even I learned something tonight.
Night vision is me up. Yep.
Somebody's winging me. It's Lark. Is that just so you can find me and try to blow me up? Good.
No, that's so you can find me and watch me try and take off.
Oh, I'm at my carrier, but I am in system.
Right.
Okay. A couple other things that I wanted to. Oh, I'm gonna make a note because I just thought of something else. Okay. So we everybody uses shifts except the keyboard people who have 1,000 buttons.
Oh, I still know. I use them at least. I mean,
you do,
right? Well,
what do you use shifts for?
For anything on the mouse wheel, my 3 or 4 functions on the mouse wheel.
Oh, right, because it's giving you extra quick access to things that you scroll through.
Really all kinds of stuff. It's funny.
Stuff.
It didn't occur to me to even think about it because I'm using the shift key as a shift key. You know, it's like I think about keyboard command so much that it's like, well, sure, this thing is shift G instead of G. You know, it's like,
well, I clearly can't use it for that. That's sprint.
But I've certainly come across somebody else who used like the space bar as a shift key rather than a primary selector.
Animal.
And that was their
animal
access to a whole bunch of extra keys. But
they did that because they're sociopaths.
It's really more like if I can't think of any examples right off the top of my head, but if there's a key that I use for something and either something that is subject related or biomechanically convenient in the same space, but should require a modifier so I don't accidentally bump silent running. That's a bad example.
So it's a method of friction.
Right.
So it's a method of convenience sometimes, and then other times you put the shift key in. Like I said, I have silent running requires my shift key, so I don't hit it by accident. Actually,
right. I had that
cell banks do as well.
But the times when you need silent running to be quick are also the times when I need to have my thrusters engaged, usually 2 or 3 of them at a time.
Yeah.
So I'm just moving it up to tilde so I don't hit it by accident.
Right.
Tab is my pulse neutralizer and tilde is my silent running.
And I actually picked up something from Indigo that I think I'm going to start doing, and that's putting the scroll subsystem in target on my mouse wheel.
It's so good.
I never thought about that. I'm over here freaking hitting Y like a million times.
My main PvE ship these days is a crate with 2 long-range pulse lasers and 3 long-range plasma slug railguns. And so I can just kind of float in a black ship 5 kilometers away and wail on modules with a mouse floating with FA off. It's
those size 3 cannons, you can be floating 10 kilometers away and do the same thing.
Yeah, I need that hit scan though.
What?
How am I going to calculate 22 seconds of travel?
Lark is still persisting in the belief that you can hit something with a long range cannon just because it's long range.
I can.
It has a travel time that pretty much eliminates long range being useful. That's why you short range your cannons. You foolish
There's a reason
man.
Battleships shoot at things on the ground.
Just got to start launching SRVs and CZs, boys.
Right.
I'm not having fun unless I can lay siege to something from 10 kilometers away.
Then, dude, learn railguns.
Railguns. It's so good.
Yeah,
That's the best.
That's the funny thing about Gamepad is it's stuff you'd never think about, but the dead zone on the Xbox controller doesn't have the specificity you guys have on a joystick. So in the middle, you've got this like floating around. And what that leads is the importance of micro gimbaling when you sub-target a module.
Yes.
And on my Anaconda, if I'm 5 kilometers plus, it is a piece of cake to rail on modules. But under 5 kilometers, that dead zone and the specificity you need is actually a bit of a headache. So that's why the long range rails really pay off, even on a large ship, because you're not having that big of a motion to line up, and you can just shred modules from far away.
Yeah. Once again, that's the same. That's the same for all. That's the point of long range on rail. It gets easier to hit ships the farther away. They move slower through your field of view when they're far away from you.
Yeah.
That's one of those clever uses for an Anaconda. If you got one sitting in your garage and you want the occasional laugh, is to just load it up with railguns.
There's 100. It's the best ship in the game. one of the clever uses.
Okay. Another concept, Headlook. Does anybody? I mean, I play in VR mostly, but I do have Headlook set up with a camera, the simple AI thing, which works rather well. I know it's not as accurate and stuff as a real Tobii tracker would be, but if I find myself playing flat screen, I really do like to have the Headlook.
Yes.
In VR, it's super easy to look at menus. I find it a little bit of a struggle, probably because I'm using the camera AI version and it's not as accurate. But to actually turn my head to look at menus to select them, I still use my actual like menu button thing. But okay, so Headlook. Anybody else?
Yes. 1,000% yes.
What do you have?
I bought a Track IR.
Okay, Track IR. Great.
It was 4 times the cost of the game. I cannot imagine playing Elite without head tracking. I played it for 3 years without head tracking. It completely changes the game. It changes combat. It changes your situational awareness. It is the best money in Elite I have spent was the Track IR to play Elite with. I swear to God, I would not play the game without it. In combat, you're not like the radar is not your only spatial awareness, and you have this locked view. The one concession is it worked up till update 17 on foot, which was super cool. It wasn't like actual VR, but in exploration and stuff, you could look around when you're running around. Ever since update 17, it doesn't work, and that's a bit of a headache. But if you can get it working with an eye tracker, which just works like a regular webcam, or you want to spring for something like Track IR, do yourself the favor and get it, because it totally changes the game.
So I've got something fun I can do. So I've been messing around with head tracking in Flight Simulator, trying to figure out if I like it and what applications for. Because like in a big airliner where I have to move around quickly on it and get switches on VATSIM or whatever, probably not the best thing. But when I'm just flying like a Cessna or whatever, sure. I haven't tried launching it for Elite yet.
Oh, do it.
It's so good.
It just grabs it on. I mean, the setup is nothing. I mean, grabs it automatically.
I have my camera right here ready to go. Should I click start? See what happens?
Yeah, you're using the
using
OpenTrack. Yep, OpenTrack with the AI mode. I forget what it's called. In fact, let me open it up so I can, in case I talked about this probably on a podcast like a long time ago, and they've updated OpenTrack since then. Here, I'll put it on screen. It is the neural net tracker mode. So you don't, at the time when I first set this up, you needed this other thing to provide the neural net tracking.
Yeah, you needed the AI track. With neural track, you don't.
Yeah, and that thing was pretty flaky. So the new version of OpenTrack can do it by itself. Just select neural net tracker.
Oh my gosh, this is weird.
You turn it on. I mean, you need to calibrate your axes and stuff to make it work right, but that's all you need. And a cheap webcam. I bought like a $20 webcam.
I'm still using the webcam I bought in like 2005. It's like 1.3 megapixels, but it does this really well.
That's fine.
Yeah. It doesn't have to, like, it can be grainy. It doesn't have to look nice.
It's not great if you're sitting in front of a mirror. I have a mirror behind my computer, and it does not play well.
Yeah, you need to let the computer, I mean, you need to be like sort of well lit enough, I guess. I don't know, hang a sheet behind you, whatever. But
it's pretty forgiving.
It's fairly
really
simple.
Yeah.
So do you have that same setup, Indigo?
Yeah, I don't use it. I don't use it all that often. I haven't really used it all that often.
Oh my gosh, this is trippy.
Yeah, it works.
Yeah.
Cool.
This is the first time I've tried moving a ship around with head tracking in Elite that I can remember, and I'm just in my Sidewinder, and this is trippy.
Yeah.
My
The-
brain
the
is not
difference-
used to it.
To me, between like with VR and it's like a true one-to-one, the ship's around you kind of situation, there's no learning curve to that. Like you're just flying. With the head tracking, it's a little, because you don't actually want to turn your head all the way to the side to turn the camera to this, because then you won't be able to see the monitor. So it's more like a sort of 15 to 30 degree difference. At least that's kind of where I have mine set up.
Yeah, that's where I ended up in Flight Simulator. I think I need to make a different profile for Elite and try this out though.
Yeah.
And
Cool
I
thing
have a
to be
little bit
really-
of a curve to it too, so it's a little bit stickier in the center of the view, because I find that to be a little helpful, but not too much. And it does help, although it takes a little, like, you might sometimes I find myself accidentally like leaving it a little tilted and not realizing.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little dizzy
I'm coming
now.
in for a landing, and the my vector's a little off because I don't realize I'm not looking dead center at the ship. Whereas for some reason, just in VR, there's none of that. It like you instantly recognize it, because it's in true 3D. So anyway,
Yeah, that's cool
the
though. I
cool-
can see why
the
people
cool-
like that.
Yeah, the cool thing about like the Track IR system, it has the infrared camera, and you just put the little sensors on your gaming headset, and it tracks tilting side to side, but also leaning back and forth. So there's a little bit of like almost VR type experience with that.
And does that works in Elite for you?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. The open track thing, like that's the first thing I turned. I just locked all those axes because
I
for
hate
whatever
those so
reason,
much.
it can create that forward back information, but it's struggles a little, and Elite doesn't seem to pick it up very well. So you get this weird like jittery thing. So I quickly locked all the translational axes and just use it for turning.
Yeah, the difference with Track IR is that it has you can do it passively where you have the head sensors or mirrors, but there's a set that's plugged in where it is sending the infrared signal from your headset. So you need a wire, but it's perfect. It's perfect in the data. Like, so you can literally like lean forward and tilt your head to the side and like look out your cockpit, and it tracks it exactly. So as long as you're willing to have another wire on your headset, I just taped it to the wire already coming off it. It works stellar. Yeah.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, that's pretty much the end of my list. The only other thing I was going to say is just to bring up the thing about binds files, because this, most people seem to know this, but it's, you never know when somebody doesn't realize. So now I need to remember where this is actually saved.
And the Steam numbers are up like 1,500 on average a day since this is the announcement. We've got a lot of new people coming back in. So there's no stone we shouldn't turn as far as old information.
Want to know something funny about binds files?
Is it in the Steam folder? I'm trying to remember.
Steam apps.
Steam apps, common. Yeah, Elite Dangerous. I think this is where we hide our... Where does the settings go? Products. Oh, Elite Dangerous, Odyssey. Oh, yeah, they changed the folders a little bit. Option. Wait, control schemes? No, this isn't it. Is it? No, these are all the default ones where it's going to like recognize something. I'm in the wrong place. Is it in the app data folder?
Oh, well, I'll vamp a little bit while you look for it. The point. So someone like, if you haven't been through a lot of updates, it seems to be random, but when the game updates, it might be the case that it just boots the custom binds file that you have. And it's as simple as copying and pasting it to another folder in your computer, and you can save yourself.
No. I'm gonna do you one better. Your tip is old and busted. Bindings. Okay, so here I found it. So so it's under your user folder in Windows, app data, and then local. And then Frontier Developments, Elite Dangerous, Options, and then Bindings. Okay, so the issue with this whole, like, don't let it overwrite, back up your bindings. Don't copy them to a different folder or something. You don't need to do that. The issue is the game has basically only has the ability to change the custom bind file. It's got a bunch of defaults that it pulls from, and it'll repopulate. But like if it's going to overwrite something because of some weird thing, although I don't think that's happened in years, frankly, but I don't know. Maybe it does. The point is, if you are working with the binds file that's called custom, that's the one that it will overwrite. Like if you click any of the defaults and then change a control, it will switch you to the custom binds file and it will overwrite the entire thing. So like if I was sitting here in my Thrustmaster T16000 setup and using the default keys, and then I change one key, it just creates a custom file and it's going to overwrite the old one when it does that, right? So if I've totally mapped out my controls and then one day I boot up the game and maybe my Thrustmaster isn't connected, the game will default to like the standard keyboard and mouse controls because it detects that joystick isn't there. So I go back, I plug it back in, I restart the game. Oops, my mistake, but I come in, but now I'm on the keyboard and mouse file and my controls don't work. So I go in and what do? Well, I'll just bind a key, not thinking about it. If you do that really quickly, you've just overwritten all of your controls because it overwrites the entire customs.bind file, right? So yes, you could back up that file to some other folder and then go back into the Finder and sorry, Finder, it's a Mac thing. Go back into the File Explorer and copy it back over. No. This is not the way you do it. So here I have mine on screen. So I made a new file. I made a copy of custom and I renamed the file. So it's called dual, VKB dual.4.0.binds. And I actually do have a backup of it. Made a copy and put .bak on it. But then the next thing that I have to do though, I'm not done. I want to open with, and I want to show more apps so I can open it with Notepad. And here's my bindings. And up here at the top, it says root preset name. And there's inside those quotes, that's going to say custom. So I changed that to VKB dual and saved it. That's all I did.
Nice.
So now I'm not in the custom file anymore. So when I'm in the game, and I'll jump back to the game on screen if anybody's on YouTube, my control schemes, you can see they all say VKB dual because that's what's in my menu. It doesn't say custom anymore. If I edit any of the other ones, like if I load up keyboard and mouse right now and then edit it, it will make a new custom file, but it won't overwrite VKB dual because that's a separate file and the game will never make that file out of one of its defaults. If I make changes in the game to VKB dual, those will save to that file and they'll be fine, but the game will never make changes to it because I'm accidentally on the wrong thing and then edited a control. And because when it creates a new file, it's always going to create custom. Make sense?
Well,
have I explained that well?
I'm still going to
I've
copy it
done
to
that
desktop.
for Flight Sim.
Yeah, so I'm just not working in the custom file anymore, and I don't ever have to think about that.
Look at this guy with his fancy talk.
Yeah, right.
Basically, simulator things is what this boils down to.
Yeah. Should the game do this on its own? Yes. There should be a menu option to create a new file and name it within the game. Yes, absolutely. In fact, they should let us do this for graphics settings, which they do not. The same process does not work for your graphics settings files, which is why I have the ED Profiler app. Because I have different settings for flat screen than for VR.
Nice.
Before I
Rant
go too far away from
I love it.
keybinds, should we take a second to talk about SRVs? Because I'm sitting in an SRV right now, getting ready to try and jump from one pedal of Aspire to another.
Launch those from 10 kilometers out.
My SRV controls end up being largely the same as ship controls because once again, the only issue is I actually don't. I use the stick axis, but only when it's in the air, right? So when I'm actually steering the wheels, I use the twist axis for that, which I think is a little bit uncommon for joystick players. But other than that, forward and back is the only axis I need on the left hand, and I use boost for the jet. So yeah, there's mine.
Yeah, I did a planetary circumnavigation earlier this year, so I spent a lot of time in the SRV and a lot of time fliving in the SRV, which required a couple little tweaks to my control scheme. But I use the kind of standard video game WASD controls for forward, back, left, and right, and then Q and E are my roll commands.
Okay,
and
right.
then
Yep.
shift forward and back are up and down pitch, because in order to get good land speed while flying your SRV, you have to be pitched almost straight down or beyond.
Yeah.
Because you're using the regular booster rockets to go
Right.
forward. But also you spend a lot of time trying to get bounces right, which means you have to be able to quickly move the pitch from forward to down.
Mm-hmm.
And then on
And
the
then back
mouse,
to forward again.
right. So I have all the orientation stuff that you can have on the mouse attached to the mouse for flying purposes. Otherwise, the mouse just does the turret or mouse look.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, so I would pretty regularly take a running leap off a hill, use the thumb forward control on the mouse for the booster thrust, and then shift W to pitch down, and then you've got your yaw and thrust. Thrust only goes up on the SRV, so if you're trying to turn left or right or maintain a steady course while you're flying, you have to be pitched straight down, looking out the top of your ship, and then using the roll command like yaw,
Yeah.
because there's no yaw on an SRV.
Right.
But it works. Man, does it work. I think I got up to about 230 meters a second in an SRV.
You're basically describing how to fly an SRV like a helicopter.
Pretty much,
Yeah,
my back
the other
thumb button
thing
is the parking brake, because one of the weird physics things kind of requires the wheels not to be moving when you bounce. If you have the wheels still when you hit the ground, it's like it has less of a perturbing effect on your trajectory. But for some reason, if the wheels are turning and you land not quite square, it'll kick you off to one side. And to get real speed going, you have to bounce, and you have to, let the thrust recover while you're falling so that you can bounce and then hit the thrust again and get some proper altitude.
I think that's one of the things that is affected by having the drive assist off, because the wheels, if you're not thrusting. But one thing I notice is because you have like WS doing dual duty there with the shift key, but you never need those at the same time. So it's that same concept, right? You don't need to be throttling your SRV's engine while you're flying, the wheel engine, and vice versa. So yeah, that's perfect.
Wait, you don't hold full throttle on the wheels when you're in the air?
Not if you want to do it right.
I just land like I'm ice skating.
I just make the sound effects with my mouth. Not that head tracking needed any more justification to add to the game, but harvesting materials in an SRV with head tracking is a piece of cake. You can look at what you want and you hit your select button.
That's it.
And when your cargo scope is open,
I didn't notice this so I played the game for a while before I got VR, and then VR was my first head tracking. And then it was like, your select forward target, that doesn't mean the ship, it's the forward of your view.
Yes.
You can pick which target you want, and likewise in the SRV, and then that translates to, so if you're one of these people who's never tried any kind of head tracking, like targeting things is awesome in it, because you don't have to turn your whole ship around.
It's so intuitive and so much more useful than the left-hand panel.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Noise.
And I mean, SRV makes perfect sense on a gamepad, I assume. Do we even need to talk about that?
Nope. Totally
I don't think so.
intuitive. Totally intuitive. Yeah. That's
are your triggers the throttles for that? Yeah, okay,
triggers are forward and back. You switch into turret mode, and it's all, it's like playing a video game. It's like driving a tank. So it's perfect.
It's like playing a video game. Is that what you just said?
Who would have thought? No, well, I've been playing this game so long, I thought it was real life. Yeah.
Cool.
Wait, this isn't life?
No. And then, so I don't know if we should talk, since we're talking about SRV, we should talk about on foot. I mean, I just switched to keyboard and mouse. I just take my hands off the other things and I go standard first person shooter controls.
Yep.
Obviously.
100%. It's more intuitive. It just makes sense. If you're not doing it, you need to do it.
I actually tried when Odyssey first came out to map it to my stick.
Oh no.
God.
I should clarify. I didn't ever try to map it to my right hand. I tried to map the left hand instead of going to keyboard, keeping that on my translational stick and then moving my right hand to the mouse.
Oh,
And I
gee.
could sort of do it, but it really wasn't intuitive. And I was not getting any benefit out of like, having an analog movement control is not as important as you might think on foot.
Yep.
So I was like, you know what? WASD.
Yeah.
No, here's what you do on foot. First thing, you get out your steering wheel for racing. Then,
Yep. Yep. Don't worry, guys. I'm going to ban him from Discord in about 30 seconds.
For the 8th time. No, there's a lot more keybinds than your standard first-person shooter with the different weapons and the different tools and everything. But that can all be managed with pairings, and it's funny though.
They have those wheels too for a lot of stuff, which is
the
very
wheel are a
convenient.
lifesaver.
I got so much enjoyment out of watching streamers post Odyssey release, playing for the first time and not knowing how to bring up the Insight little spectrum menu.
Yeah.
There was this whole category of like streamers just sitting there being like, wait, how do I do anything?
Because you don't sort of know what it's called. Like if I go look at the controls now, like on foot. Oops,
I have
in the wrong
fond
place,
memories
but
of that.
And Elite follows the grand space game tradition of explaining nothing.
Yeah, doesn't
Yeah.
yeah. The only thing not intuitive about on foot is the comms menu and having to like bring it up, and it's in the whole.
It does
chat
feel a
is
little weird.
It feels a little janky, but other
You
than
get
that,
used to it, though.
There's places where like E to interact. There's places where E works in the menu, but other places where it doesn't. And there's places where space works in the menu. Actually, I think space is pretty consistent. And there's places where you have to click the button, but there's times when it's like really not convenient. And I am so used to not using the mouse for menus in this game because I'm always on the joysticks. So I even on foot, I like navigate menus with WASD because it works and it's frankly faster for me sometimes than mousing around a menu.
yeah,
But that does irk me a little bit. The very rare times when I do get on foot in this game is like sometimes E, sometimes space. It's like get it together.
it
I
is
think it's
funny too
stupid.
because you could tell the UI philosophy with the radial wheels and everything was console oriented, and then that was another little salt in the wound when I came for console because it makes
I think it's
sense with a good game.
It's a good idea. I mean, it's not like, some games are, it's like, oh, this game was a console port and it's really bad on PC, but radial wheels for selecting things is just a good design.
I like it.
That's VR
straight
games
up.
use that all the time. And I
Easy.
mean, it's great in VR too, because you can physically do it with your hands. With Half-Life Alyx weapon selection, you hold that button and then just basically move your hand in a gesture to land on the weapon you want. It's extremely intuitive.
It's just as
And
good
it's
on
basically a
flat
radial
screen.
wheel.
Yeah, for the same reason. I
Yeah.
can just hit jam a
Absolutely.
key, gesture my mouse, and ta-da, thing done.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. I've got nothing else.
Me neither.
I guess I could remind the only thing left in our community corner is that this Canon event activate all 40 Guardian beacons at the same time. Still planning to go off at the end of the month, at the end of February. So get prepared.
Everyone
Gird your
prepare for the
loins.
game to end when
There
they
for
do
the
that.
servers to go down. Been a good run, boys.
Yeah, it was fun. Anything else anybody wants to throw in here?
No, I think we've
No.
covered it.
Just at
That's
the
it.
day that they do the Guardian thing, I hope there's an Amazon Web Services employee there with a fire extinguisher.
Mm-hmm.
It only takes 40 instances for this Guardian thing to happen. Like this is not.
Like it's a side view of a server rack and it's just oof, flames.
Spaghetti code. Something's gonna go wrong.
Okay. All right.
Some spaghetti code. Yeah. Any.
right.
Yeah, there are a lot of new players coming back to the game and people that are rusty and haven't fired it up in years. Question channel in the Discord, perfect place to go. Fire a question off, no matter how silly it feels. Someone helpful will help you out.
We'll also
Great.
happily explain all of our insane memes.
And to carry on the conversation, I guess if keybinds, if this got you thinking about something, if somebody wants to change key configurations, controller configurations, or if you heard, maybe you're not changing controllers, but you heard about the certain way that somebody set something up. And anyway, those sorts of discussions, come on down
Or
to
if you
Discord.
want to pop in and give us all your insight in how to do camera suite key bindings, because that's a whole other beast that
That's 6
obviously we're not going to
episodes.
talk about tonight.
Yeah,
That's another
we'll
thing that I
have to
think-
have Rini on for that one.
I think I'm a little advantaged having dual stick, but all the great camera people seem to land on gamepad eventually. So
Interesting.
maybe, although I know that the Burrs are into their VKB setups. So I'm not sure if Rainey is using that for camera though. But this is all secondhand information from like probably the Flight Assist podcast.
I think
episode
Rainey
that they were
has
on,
her 2 sticks for the camera, but also has a controller under her feet and uses her big toes on the joysticks there.
All right.
Jesus. You heard it here
Thanks,
first,
thanks everybody for listening to this hopefully good episode of the Loose Screws podcast. Thanks to all the patrons for supporting the show and letting us, pay for the little bits of things that we use to produce the show, which is very nice of you. And I do still need to buy a bunch of merch and send it to people who are pillars of the community. But I'm just, life keeps getting in the way. Maybe if this game really does pop off and have a big second wind that it seems to be having, we'll be in more and I'll finally bite off that bullet and do the thing. But
heck yes,
cross your fingers.
It doesn't all have to fall on me too, but I do know that I'm the one that accesses the merch store. So anyway,
no, it does.
All right. Well, patreon.com/loosescrewsed to find us there. Links are all in the notes, of course. Links to Discord, links to the merch store, etc., etc., etc. And thanks to Audaxius and Lark Shadow and Indigo for joining me. Hate was also here, had to run pretty early, unfortunately, but thanks to him as well, of course. And
his little space cadet woke up.
Yeah, kiddos. What are you gonna do?
Right. Well, good night, everyone.
Good night, Scrooge.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.